You know that feeling on a hot summer day in the city? You walk past a big building, maybe an office or a hotel, and you feel that cool mist from an AC unit. It feels great, right? Refreshing. But what if that harmless little mist was carrying an invisible danger? Well, for some people, it has. And that danger has a name: Legionnaires' Disease. It's a hidden threat, and it's lurking right where we'd least expect. And listen, this isn't some hypothetical scenario. For one neighborhood in New York City, this was devastatingly real. This quote just captures the terrifying speed of it all, how an invisible threat can just explode into a full-blown public health crisis practically overnight. I mean, just look at how fast this all happened. The first cases were identified on July 25th. And then only 11 days later, the outbreak had ballooned to nearly 60 confirmed cases, and it had already taken 2 lives. And the source? Well, it wasn't some exotic virus from far away. It was something we see all the time in our cities. So, that brings us to our first section, an outbreak in Harlem. So what was the source? It turned out to be contaminated cooling towers. You know, those massive air conditioning systems on top of big buildings? The Harlem incident is just this stark reminder that the very infrastructure we build to keep us comfortable can sometimes harbor a silent, deadly threat. Next up, the invisible enemy. So how can something as simple as water vapor become so incredibly dangerous? To get that, we need to really understand the disease itself. Okay, so at its core, Legionnaires is a really severe type of pneumonia. But here's the most important part. You don't catch it from another person, and you don't get it from just drinking contaminated water. The infection happens in a super specific way. You have to breathe in microscopic, airborne droplets of water that are carrying the bacteria. Think of the fine mist coming from a cooling tower, or a big decorative fountain, or even a hot tub. And what makes this disease so tricky is that it starts out looking just like a bad flu. The symptoms usually pop up about 2 to 10 days after you've been exposed. You might get a high fever, a nasty cough, muscle aches, but then it can quickly get much worse, leading to shortness of breath and even confusion. That's why catching it early is absolutely critical. Okay, Section 3, a growing national threat. Now, the Harlem outbreak was a real tragedy, but you might be thinking it was just a one-off, an isolated incident. Well, the data shows something else entirely. A much larger and honestly more disturbing trend that's playing out across the whole country. 900%. Just let that number sink in for a second. That is the unbelievable increase in reported cases of Legionnaires' disease in the U.S. just since the year 2000. This isn't some statistical blip, you guys. This is a massive, flashing red light for public health. And to put that 900% in perspective, let's look at the actual numbers. Back in 2000, the rate was about half a case for every 100,000 people. Now, fast forward to today, and that rate has jumped up to almost 3 cases. That's a huge increase, and it shows this thing is not slowing down. When you dig into the data, a really clear picture starts to emerge. Every single year, we're seeing up to 18,000 hospitalizations, and cases always seem to peak in the warmer months, summer and early fall. So who's most at risk? Well, the bacteria tends to hit adults over 50 the hardest, along with smokers and anyone with a compromised immune system. So, Section 4, why are cases rising? This leads us to the most important question of all, right? Why is this happening? Why this crazy surge over the last couple of decades? Well, it's not just one thing. It's more like a perfect storm of 3 major factors that are helping this bacteria spread. First up, our infrastructure is getting old. Think about it. You've got these complex, sprawling water systems inside older buildings. Over time, parts of the pipes can develop spots where warm water just sits there, stagnant. And that creates the perfect little vacation resort for Legionella bacteria to grow and multiply. Second, there's our changing climate. Legionella bacteria absolutely thrives in warm water. So as our summers get hotter and they last longer, the ideal conditions for this bacteria to grow in our water systems last longer too. It's pretty simple. A warmer planet means a higher risk. And the third factor, well, it's us. Our population as a whole is getting older. And with age can come chronic health conditions that weaken our body's natural defenses. So you've got this convergence: aging pipes, a warming climate, and a growing population of people who are more vulnerable. It's a true perfect storm. All right, Section 5, stopping the spread. Now, I know all that data is pretty alarming, but here is the single most important thing to take away from all of this. We can absolutely win this fight. Legionnaires' disease is almost entirely preventable. So how do we do it? Prevention really comes down to a two-front attack. First, on a personal level, it's all about being aware. If you're in a high-risk group and you start developing what feels like a really severe flu, get medical care right away. And second, and this is the big one, is responsibility at the source. Building owners have to follow their water safety plans. That means routinely testing and cleaning their systems to kill the bacteria before it ever gets a chance to become airborne. So all of this brings us to a really unsettling question. When you put together our aging buildings with a warming planet, are we just destined for a future where outbreaks like the one in Harlem become our new normal?
The answer is no. It doesn't have to be. It absolutely doesn't. The Harlem outbreak was a horrible tragedy, but it was also a wake-up call. It proved that this disease is preventable, but it requires vigilance and proper maintenance. The knowledge is our most powerful tool, but only if we actually use it. In the end, the biggest threat isn't the bacteria hiding in our pipes. It's the danger of our own inaction.